Hello, I'm Toycat, and that incredibly tall building you can see in the background that looks a little bit like a shard, you could say, is called the Shard. And it's actually the tallest building in the EU. I mean, it's not the tallest building in the EU anymore, but it's taller than any building in the EU, despite being outside of it. And so as you can see, it's a delightfully tall building that many people, it's like one of the iconic landmarks of London. However, there's a little quirk with it. It's a lot of office space between like floors 30 and 50, and then you know, the top floors are viewing decks. Up there's someone right now doing a little tourist thing with their family, looking down at me on my bike, hopefully. But it's interesting because despite being you know, really good at being an office space, because who doesn't want their business in the Shard, and despite being this amazing viewing deck where they make a ton of money, pro tip, it costs like 25 quid just to go up a viewing deck. It's not the best use of money in the world, but you know, it's very successful in both these things. But there's a ton of apartments, and by a ton I mean there's about 20 apartments in the Shard, which are some of the most expensive in London. They cost about £50 million. That's about $70 million if we convert to USD. And it's interesting because when you hear that, you might be thinking to yourself like, okay, the reason, you know, like there's no way anyone's actually buying those, and you'd be correct. But it's not for the reason you think, because despite being $50 million, $70 million, which seems like an amount no one is spending on an apartment, plus you gotta pay service charges and ground rent. Honestly, when you're buying a 50 mil apartment, I wonder what those fees are like every year. Like, do you even mind? If you're the sort of person who can drop 50 mil on a building, do you mind that it costs 10K a year to maintain? Or do you, you know, like it could go either way. It could be, you have to be smart with money to have 50 mil to invest, or 50 mil is just such a, you know, 10K is a drop in the bucket compared to 50 mil. Anyway, one of the way quirks fit is the reason that those apartments are still to this day empty. There is not a single one that has been sold. The reason that that is true is because, man, that's the Shard up there. Tallest building in London and the former EU. But I'll start calling it the former EU more. That's a fun title. Anyway, as you can see looking at this building, it's a great location that many people would love to live. If you look from the outside and you say to yourself, I have 50 million, do I want an apartment in a building like one of these, or do I want to live in the tallest building in the former EU? But the interesting quirk, the supposed reason that it hasn't sold well, which I think is like partially like overpricing, but again, at a certain point in the market, overpricing isn't really a thing. Something is worth what you're willing to pay for it. But yeah, the actual reason that the apartments in the Shard haven't sold supposedly is because if you're the sort of person who does have 50 million spent on an apartment, you don't want to be seen as someone who lives south of the river. If you're curious, right now, even though this looks pretty Londony, actually does it? Right here it doesn't look the most Londony, but I'm near London Bridge station, I think the second busiest hub in London, or the third busiest. It's pretty nuts just how busy this whole area is. This Tower Bridge over there, it's a pretty area of London. It's very Londony is what I'm saying. And the Shard is right there. It's it gets taller and taller as we get closer, which is definitely not perspective, it is actually how the building works. It's like one of those Harry Potter spells. Anyway, the reason that they're not selling, supposedly, is in some part due to the fact that if you are the sort of person who has 50 million spent on an apartment, you are wealthy, and you don't want to be seen as someone who lives south of the river. And so that delightful building, okay, I'm going to be really careful here. And so that delightful building is entirely empty. Even all these years later, it's been like 5 or 6 years now, not a single sale for an apartment, because who wants to live south of the river? Which is something that is entirely absurd if you live outside London and don't have that local knowledge, right? What is the difference of living which side of the river? Entirely arbitrary these days. I mean, historically, the south has been this much worse area. The demographics change entirely when you go north or south. There's even a fun joke there's a fun joke about how bad the transport links are in a recent movie, The Last Night in Soho. That's like, yeah, of course I own a car. How else am I meant to get from South London to North London? Which is funny because in the prevailing trend in London is you don't need a car. I mean, all of these people trying to prove that as wrong as they can, apparently. But like, that's a bus. This isn't Uber. That's a, you know, SUV driver of some form with a brand new car, registered this year. So that's someone more money than, you know, logic right here. You can see, looking around London, people don't drive because they have to. They drive because they want to, or they're so price insensitive and you know, like time insensitive in some cases, that it genuinely doesn't matter. Anyway, so that's local knowledge, right? And local knowledge is one of those concepts that annoys the heck out of me. Like, obviously it needs to exist because there are things that as a local you'll know that are harder to find out as someone who's not from the city. For instance, this on the right here is London Bridge I'm about to enter. And if you come to London Bridge right now, I don't know, it's like one lane of traffic either way, and then it's a bus lane, and then it's a bike lane. It's a very eco-friendly bridge, perhaps we could say. In fact, if you look right here, between 7 AM and 7 PM, you literally are not allowed. Oh, is this okay, this is a green, we're fine. Between 7 AM and 7 PM, you are not allowed on this bridge as a private driver. Oh, okay, let's cut left here. See, look at this, look at my lovely little safe bike lane. But this is all recent. This is all new changes. And as an outsider, you get the great view that like, oh, this is a nice bridge. You can go for a nice bike ride here. Whereas if you've been here for more than a few years, you'll know the hell that was trying to use this bridge before. Same with these little on the side here. Do you see this? This is brand new. This is a result of terrorism. The local knowledge is kind of sad, and it's the history of why they had to put up barriers this big, because apparently cars can be used for terror. Who would have thought that a giant box that weighs significantly more than a person, and which anyone can get their hands on and drive for basically any reason, could be used as a way to kill people? I'm shocked. I certainly don't have road stats to back that up. Anyway, I come across this anti-car a lot in these videos. I think my only point is actually like anti-car in a city, right? Like anti-forced car is my point, is that the car should be like a choice. You know, there's this funny, wait, no, local knowledge. There's a funny thing about choice, and like, when does a choice stop being a choice? That I think we grapple with as a society that I'd love to talk about. But first, let's talk about the absolute bullshit that is like certain bits of local knowledge. Because right now we are north of the river in the financial capital. This is the City of London. It's actually a corporation instead of a city. So the way the way they run the elections here is it's not based on people. It's based on corporations get a vote. If you run your business in the city, you get a number of votes proportional. I think it's either to the number of employees or the amount of business you do. But long story short, this is a city run for corporations by a corporation. Okay, I guess we're going left diagonal according to this little arrow. Does that, see, there's that arrow there, I mean I can go down there? Or does it mean I can go up here? I'm not sure, but I'm going this way anyway. But I've got home to head to today. Local knowledge annoys me because so many pieces of local knowledge are self-fulfilling prophecies. Like one of those examples is south of the river, north of the river. The river is not a straight line. If it was, then it'd be north or south of a point, and at least you can make an argument there. And unlike east-west, where historically, you know, like there's something about fumes blowing east, and the Thames gets grosser and grosser as you go easter and easter. There are some valid points there. The point about north-south is one of those historic divides that only works because people know that it, you know, it's like again, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like if you are local to the area, you'll know, don't try and sell expensive buildings in the south, because that is where, you know, that's the south. No one wants to live there. Okay, gonna get past this green light. If it kills me, yeah, this is nice. I love this ghost cycle, by the way. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's a nice time going for a ride through the city, and like having that power when I need it for moments like that is cool. Anyway, yeah, so local knowledge is dumb, because if everyone forgot that fact today, then you'd look at the south, at least you'd look at the north of the south, at least, let's be honest. Some parts of the south are still horrifically connected, but you look at the north of the south and maybe even the west of the south, and you'd be like, actually, yeah, these are areas that are well connected to tube or transport, or, you know, in some cases road even. Wow, you can drive and live in London, which some people want to choose apparently. And you'd be like, wow, yeah, these are way underpriced compared to living in the north or living in the west. And then it'd be like a correction. But because there is this association, one of the problems with, I forget the word for it. I'm gonna use a made-up word, and then we'll see if it's correct. A sporadic association. No, that's not it at all. But the problem with these associations, where people just kind of assume they be the way they be, the problem with these associations is they actually have a real power in affecting how the future goes for it. So, for example, if you again, if you ignore that fact, if you don't know that piece of local knowledge, or let's just say that you choose to ignore it, or you choose to cash in on cheaper relative property values or land values or whatever you want to call it, and you want to live south of the River Thames, perhaps in the Shard, we could even say. But if you choose to do that, okay, I'm gonna pull an overtake in here. Maybe not a second one. We'll see. Okay, maybe not. The problem with such an association is that now if you do make that decision, and again, if you're the type of wealthy person who can afford which area to... Okay, so I'm gonna cut into traffic here. Oh, no, I'm not. This is one of those weird situations. See, one of the very rare circumstances is being stuck in traffic on a bike. It is not common at all. I do not know. I feel like I should get more comfortable with overtaking people, but with bikes, you have to kind of just be prepared for everything. They'd have just walked, they would have made it just as well, you know? Anyway, long story short here is, now if you're the sort of person who's that level of wealth, there's a big social value in things to you, you know, like, if you, again, look at this car in front of me, it's a expensive, oh, that's a nice car too. Buying something expensive is partly about the benefits that come with buying something expensive, but it's partly about the social value in being able to say, yeah, I have one of these, or one of those, or one of this. Oh. See, I was gonna go left on red, but I try to make a point in these videos now about stopping at red lights, just so I don't get that one comment invalidating my whole existence based on not. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna make a point about not stopping at every red light, about how proving actually you can, you're not. No, let's not. Let's save the red light argument for another day. Is my camera still going? It is. We got half battery left. Okay. Oh Jesus, I am holding up traffic. Okay. Do not look at the camera. Okay, I'm just gonna cut left. See, I could have done that without waiting for the red. I just slowed down traffic significantly to do so. I don't know if I feel good about that. Societal decision I just made there. Anyway, so one of the weird quirks of buying something nice is people kind of need to know that you bought something nice for you to enjoy it. And even though I can pretend I'm immune to this, and I really want to be, I do like when people compliment the bike, even on the internet. It means slightly less on the internet because people know all the backstory, but like, if people can just look at something and say it's nice, I'm like, yeah. It's even as someone who tries their best to not be influenced by that, of course it influences me. I was going to buy a car recently because my license still has not come. If you don't know, I learned to drive. My intention was never to actually drive. I just wanted to do like a rental, get one long distance drive in, and then be like, yep, I've mastered driving in the UK. Okay. Well, that was my entire intention. Sadly, the physical license didn't come, and you don't need a physical license to drive in the UK. You just need a, you just need to be able to present it to a police officer within a certain amount of time of being asked for a driving license. However, the interesting truth is that you do need a driving license to rent a car, which means I was just going to buy a car to bypass that whole procedure, like temporarily, own a car, sell it later, be great. And so, as someone with no knowledge of the car market, I could have looked into it, found what's the best bang for buck, etc, etc, etc. Like, learned about engines and about brake coolant and about whatever nonsense is going on in there. Turbo, gears, motorized, energizing windshields. We could learn about all those things. Or, instead, I could use the societal blueprint that has been laid down for me that says something along the lines of, if you buy a Japanese car, it will last for a long time. If you buy a German car, it will last for almost a long time and also be nice. And so the cars I did actually look at were a Toyota Aygo, I think it was, and a Volkswagen, either a Polo or a Golf. Either one of the two. I was not really hugely concerned. But my point there is, even this was like one of the first moments where I realized, like, yeah, I don't want to learn this thing. I'm going to use the societal blueprint. And that societal blueprint is based on everyone's individual experience being averaged out into conversations, etc, etc, etc. And it's not a great thing. I was thinking about something, because it's really cold now. It's I think it's officially winter. Like, it's December. Yeah, it's got to be winter. So it's officially winter, and so now every other day it is so cold outside. Like right now it's like 7 degrees Celsius. My hands are cold, but they can withstand this for another half an hour or whatever it takes me to get home. Yeah, there's a fun little scooter ahead of me. Hope he has his e-scooter license. Yeah, am I right? See? Funny me. Yeah, like today it's like cold, but like not unbearably cold. But half a day's now, it's just unbearably cold outside. And this is with me wearing a, I think like a ski jacket is what you call it. And so, what is this? The light shows nothing. You're allowed to do whatever you want, I believe is the rule of the road. Anyway, yeah, I get like too cold to ride my bike because my hands are exposed. I can get gloves or something, but my point here is that the exact same thing I was doing a month ago has stopped being valid as a result of the winter. The seasons changing has changed my ability to do the exact same thing I could do before. And I'm sure that if I keep doing what I'm doing now, the ski jacket and wearing gloves into the summer, the exact same thing would happen, right? You have to adjust based on the, what am I even doing here, honestly? You have to adjust based on the conditions that you find yourself in. Like by ignoring red lights when they are entirely ridiculous. And there's a really interesting thing in this, I think, that like, if you look at the world map of like economics or wealth, etc., obviously a lot of it correlates to like areas inhabited by Europeans or whatever. We can, you know, you can make a colonialism argument, but the point of like, why was it that one region was so much more successful than the others, to the level where they could literally just take them over and use them for economic gain? And so yeah, if you look at the north of the world, like again, if you look at the wealthiest countries, like a Norway, a Sweden, a Finland, it's like, yeah, these places all are very cold. And people make the link that like, yeah, the colder a place is, the more money there is. And that's generally true. There's exceptions in like Russia, or like Canada's colder than America, but it's slightly less wealthy per capita. Or like, you know, when you go in the southern hemisphere, it stops being so true. Like Argentina and Chile are wealthier than the rest of South America, but not as wealthy as their equivalents in the northern hemisphere. And so yeah, and you know, like, oh Christ. And so my foot hit the ground there. That was semi-dangerous, I bet. And yeah, so a lot of people make the correlation that it's like cold equals wealth or something along those lines. But what I think it actually is more along the lines of something about seasonal changes, right? You have to adapt your behavior just to deal with the change in an environment which is happening around you all the time. And even though people say seasons are very predictable, they're kind of not. When summer started, it wasn't very warm, and then when summer was about to end, when it was technically autumn, it's so in like some of the hottest days I've experienced in my life in the UK happened just after that. When I was in Vegas, some of the hottest days were in the autumn, and you know, like seasons don't kick in at exactly the same time, partially because we have calendar drift, and so exact seasons don't line up with calendar dates at all, but partially it's because of the fact that obviously it's just unpredictable. Like the exact day that things will get so cold is going to change year to year to year. And this is like an element of unpredictability, like ignoring the fact that if you live somewhere where all 4 seasons are the same, life can stay pretty steady. Like one of the key goals in humanity is to be steady, to be comfortable or whatever else. And so looking around, the king of falafel is over there. Do you think he really is the king of all of those falafels? I don't know if I believe that. Anyway, yeah, if you actually look at like the way seasons really work, it's like this unpredicted event that happens 2 to 4 times a year, depending on where you live. So like you need to change things, or you, depending on the severity, depending how far north you are, either things get unpleasant for you and uncomfortable, and maybe you get sick, or maybe you just die. If you, it blows my mind that there are parts of like Canada and the north of Norway where it's like, yeah, so you leave the house, if you've locked yourself out, then okay, guess what, you're dead. There's that town Churchill in Canada, for example, where you have to leave your cars unlocked by law because if someone is, or maybe it's houses, but you have to leave your cars unlocked by law because if someone's being attacked by a polar bear, they need to jump into the nearest car to escape that. And I've always thought that to be like a curious little fact, like a difference of life. They're like, yeah, your life and death being closer does make you slightly more